The last day we spoke about the Red School and the Parochial Hall School, and I finished up by just talking about the time we transferred up to St Oliver Plunkett's School, which of course at that time was called St Sylvester's Boys' School, up at the top of the rise. Now this was a brand new school that was built, and there was 3 classrooms in this, and then linked together by a corridor with a flat roof on it. It also had cloakrooms, which is a big breakthrough for us, and of course it also had very good quality indoor toilets. So it was a very exciting time moving up there, and my memory of it at the time we were going up was that we got these blazers, which were very much like English schoolboy blazers that you would say Billy Bunter and things like that you see on television, with the gold braiding on the rims and on pockets. And I had an unfortunate incident, that's how I recall it so well. I was in a little place opposite the Garda barracks in Malahide. There was a big bank there just at the bus stop you used to pull up. This is before the garage was built or anything. It was just a big bank, and it was on the top of it was a bit of a barbed wire fence. And I remember for some reason we were messing on top of it or something like that. Didn't I tear my brand new blazer with the barbed wire? And I was mortified with it, of course, and I was trying to hide it from my mother for a few days. So that's how I remember about the blazer. I went into 4th class at the time, so Mr. Joyce had 4th, 5th and 6th classes. And there was another teacher then with 1st, 2nd and 3rd. And then they introduced a junior school for what we could call infants and senior infants. The principal, as I say, was Mr. Joyce. And Mr. Joyce, I may have mentioned before, could have a bit of a temper, when things weren't going right. And the signs were often like he'd be at the desk and somebody would have annoyed him, or somebody wouldn't have done their homework, or else just something else went wrong with him, whatever the reason. But he had a watch, and it had an expanding bracelet. It was lovely. It seemed to be a good quality watch, not that I'd know at the time really, one from the other. But he would start to expand the bracelet and pull the watch off and put it on the desk. This was a sign there was trouble, because the watch came off in case the watch got damaged. Then out came the cane, and somebody was going to get a whacking. And so we all learned, oh my God, look, he's got the watch off. So that was a big sign. But now, in fairness to Mr. Joyce, he was a bit severe like that at times, but he was also very innovative, and he taught us the tin whistle, or tried to teach us the tin whistle, because he liked the tin whistle, I think. But he also taught us basic geometry and algebra, which was a very strange thing in a primary school at the time. But for me, anyway, it really was I found it very interesting, and it prompted my interest in mathematics. Because we were in the senior guys, we like 4th, 5th and 5th, we could get little jobs to do around the school, so we had 3 main things, as I recall. One was to make up ink, because in those days you had to mix up the ink with the powder. That was job 1. Another interesting thing was we had a library, believe it or not. Now, a library was one shelf of books, and a mobile library van would come every, I don't know, maybe once a year, that's all. And it would take away half the books and give you another half a shelf of books. And then they were lent out, and they had to be recorded who had them, etc., etc. So that was another job. People had to look after the library. Now, the third most interesting job often was to clean the windows. Now, you'd say, what on earth kids clean the windows for? Well, the thing was, just gave us something to do, really. And Mr. Joyce would allow you to clean the windows, particularly the ones up on the skylight, because up on top of the corridor, which was a flat roof, then there was skylight windows into the classrooms. So you got up there and you could be scrubbing away at the old window and looking into the different classes, see what was going on. And of course, because it was a flat roof, like you can imagine a bit of messing going on sometimes, but also the shelter in the yard was also a flat roof, and between them there was a bit of a gap. If you're brave enough, you could try and jump over it. And in fact, one of the lads one day, he did try it and he failed and he slipped down. Now, he didn't do himself any harm or something, but I'm afraid that was the end of it. We weren't allowed up on the roof to do any cleaning after that. That was the end of that one. As I said, there was no secondary school for boys in Malahide at that time. So off I went into the city. We had to go in by train. So I got the train in, I went to O'Connell schools in there, and that's where I went to my secondary school, and then I went on from that to the College of Technology to study engineering. But the interesting thing about all this was that the original school is still there as it was in the 1954, But the expansion of that school, the 2 new buildings that were put up there, they've both been replaced, or now both being replaced by a brand new school. And the same up with the community school has been rebuilt. And yet, the original schools I went to, like the Red School and the Parochial Hall and the 1954 St. Sylvester's Boys School up the rise, they're still in existence. So maybe there's something to be said about the quality of schools when they were built in the 50s as opposed to those that were built in the 70s and 80s. I'd leave that to your own judgment.